uns mit einem Gebet ein.
Dear Heavenly Father,
Lieber himmlischer Vater,
thank you for this morning and that we can study again your word.
danke für diesen Morgen und dass wir wieder dein Wort studieren können.
Please help us to pay attention, help us to be able to understand the things that we're going to look at.
Bitte hilf uns aufmerksam zu sein und die Dinge zu verstehen, die wir uns jetzt anschauen wollen.
Please give us a spiritual mindset and that we would see things as you want us to see them.
Bitte gib uns ein geistliches Gedankengut und hilf uns, die Dinge so zu sehen, wie du sie siehst.
And give us, please, an open mind and a teachable spirit.
Und bitte gib uns einen offenen Verstand und einen belehrbaren Geist.
And I thank you and I pray in Jesus' name.
Ich danke und bete das im Namen Jesu. Amen.
Okay, down to Genesis 39.
Also geht zu 1. Mose 39.
Just want to do a quick recap, remind us of these thoughts.
Wir wollen eine kurze Wiederholung machen und uns an die Gedanken erinnern.
So, in Genesis 39, it begins with Joseph. He is bought by Potiphar from the Ishmaelites.
In 1. Mose 39 beginnt es mit Josef, der von Potiphar, von den Ismaelitern erkauft wird.
Marking this redemption.
Das markiert diese Erlösung.
So it would mark the end where he's set free and that he's set up over all his house.
Das markiert dann das Ende, wo er freigesetzt wird und er wird über sein ganzes Haus gesetzt.
Okay, so just prophetically marks this waymark, right?
Prophetisch, es markiert diese Wegmarke.
But let's talk about the one back here because we're going to bring him down this way, right?
Aber eigentlich sprechen wir dann über diese hier, weil das würde ihn dann hierhin führen.
Okay, and then it says, then you have this, his Potiphar's wife, right, begins to tempt him, right?
Und dann ist Potiphars Frau, die jetzt anfängt, ihn zu versuchen.
Okay, bring it from that point down to here, right?
Bring dich von diesem Punkt hierhin.
Okay, and day after day she's tempting him, right?
Tag nach Tag versucht sie.
But he refuses,
Er
right?
weigert sich aber.
And it brings down to the point where she tries to force him and he flees, right?
Das führt dann zu dem Punkt, wo sie versucht, ihn zu zwingen, aber er flieht.
So he's fleeing from the wickedness and he's fleeing to Christ.
Er
Right?
flieht von der Bosheit weg und er flieht zu
And
Christus.
she takes his garment and begins to accuse him.
Und sie
Right?
nimmt sein Gewand weg und fängt an, ihn anzuklagen.
Okay, and Potiphar, who knows he's innocent, instead of putting him to death, puts him in jail. Right?
Potiphar, der weiß, dass er unschuldig ist, anstatt dass er ihn zu Tode bringt, wirft ihn ins Gefängnis.
So he gets made the scapegoat for something that she was guilty of.
Also er macht ihn zum Sündenbock für etwas, woran sie schuldig geworden
Okay,
war.
and we looked at this, right? This would represent Joseph going into prison here.
Wir haben uns das angeschaut, das würde hier darstellen, wenn Josef ins Gefängnis geht.
Okay, and you have these 3 days marked, these 2 classes.
Dann haben wir hier diese 3 Tage markiert, diese 2 Klassen.
Okay, and at the end of it, the butler gets restored and the baker gets hanged.
Und am Ende davon wird der Mundschenk wiederhergestellt und der Bäcker wird erhängt.
And the butler would represent, I mean, from my perspective, a Gentile who gets converted, right, through his association with Joseph.
Und der Mundschenk von meiner Perspektive, also der wird dann, also er stellt einen Heiden dar, der dann bekehrt wird durch das Zusammensein mit Josef.
Okay, he's the cupbearer, right?
Er ist der Kelchträger.
Right, and just remind us, just keep your place there. Go to John chapter 2.
Haltet euren Finger hier, geht zu Johannes 2.
Okay, and this is the third day, right, at the marriage of Cana.
Das ist der dritte Tag bei der Hochzeit von Kana.
Right, and it's marking this point where he fills these 6 water pots of stone to the brim, right?
Das markiert den Punkt, wenn diese 6 Wasserkrüge aus Stein bis zum Rand füllt.
Okay, and it marks where he redeems man. He fills them with the Holy Spirit.
Das markiert, wenn den Menschen erlöst, wenn ihn mit dem Heiligen Geist
And they then draw out the water, these servants, and they give it to the governor of the feast, right?
Und diese Knechte, die schöpfen dann das Wasser und geben es dem Gouverneur des Festes.
And Sister White tells us that they give it in these, they give the cup to the governor.
Und der
Right.
White sagt uns, sie geben den Kelch dem Gouverneur.
Okay, so they're these cup bearers,
Sie
right?
sind also diejenigen, die den Kelch tragen.
We know that the cup is the representing God's judgments,
Wir
right?
wissen, der Kelch, das stellt Gottes Gerichte dar.
Okay, so you have this same principle here. These people that are filled with the Spirit, right, are the ones that become the cupbearer.
Hier ist dasselbe Prinzip. Diese Leute, die mit dem Heiligen Geist gefüllt werden, werden zu diesem Träger des Kelches.
And it's this butler is the one that 2 years later, right, it brings you to Genesis chapter 40.
Und dieser Mundschenk, da bringt es uns zu 1. Mose 41 mit 2 Jahren später.
Right, and we all understand why the butler represents somebody that's converted.
Wir verstehen alle, wie der Mundschenk jemand darstellt, der bekehrt ist.
Okay, so are we sitting on the fence, or is that a no, or is that a yes?
Sitzen wir auf dem Zaun sozusagen, ist das ein Ja oder ein Nein?
He's restored.
Yeah, he's restored, but also the illustration you have these. I mean, it says the.
In the dream when he budded
Yeah, it says in the vine were 3 branches, and it was though it budded, and the blossoms shot forth, and the clusters thereof brought forth ripe grapes. So he has fruit, right?
Also wird wiederhergestellt, aber hier in Vers 10, da steht dann noch diese 3 Schritte und dass dann Frucht hat.
Okay, that's where Christ took this from when he's speaking these parables, right?
Daher hat Christus das genommen, als die Gleichnisse gesprochen hat.
Okay, and this butler is like an intermediary. He's the one that introduces Joseph to Pharaoh, right?
Und dieser Mundschenk ist so wie ein Vermittler. Er ist derjenige, der dann dem Pharao Josef vorstellt.
Okay, same as Daniel in Daniel chapter 5. Right?
Dasselbe wie Daniel in Daniel 5.
The queen mother, who was the wife of Nebuchadnezzar, right? She also did this same work.
Und da
Right?
hat die Mutter, die Königin, also die Mutter von Nebuchadnezzar, the wife of...
Yeah, the wife of Nebuchadnezzar.
Okay, also die Mutter von Belshazzar, also die Frau von Nebukadnezar.
She's not the mother of Belshazzar. I didn't say that.
Oh, you said the mother?
It's queen mother.
Ah, okay. Die Mutter, Königin, also die Frau von Nebukadnezar, sie macht dasselbe Werk.
Yes, right. She introduces Daniel to Belshazzar.
Und
Right?
sie stellt Daniel dem Belshazzar vor.
Okay, so anyway, the point we have to remember when we're looking at this, right, is God's thoughts are not our thoughts, and His ways are not our ways, right?
Und den Punkt, den wir uns erinnern müssen, wenn wir das anschauen, dass Gottes Gedanken nicht unsere Gedanken sind und seine Wege nicht unsere
So
Wege.
just because we don't understand something, right, is all the more need for us to come close to the Lord to ask Him, right?
Also nur weil wir etwas nicht verstehen, das zeigt uns einfach noch mehr unser Bedürfnis, dass wir zu dem Herrn nahe kommen und ihn darum bitten.
Okay, and also He hanged the baker, right, which is the curse, right?
Und er hat auch den Bäcker erhängt und das ist der Fluch.
Okay, so the point is that Joseph is here. The butler gets restored, but Joseph remains in prison, right?
Also der Punkt ist, dass eben der Bäcker, der Mundschenk wird zwar wiederhergestellt, aber Josef bleibt im Gefängnis.
Okay, but is he literally? is he prophetically still in captivity?
Ist er prophetisch gesehen immer noch in Gefangenschaft?
I mean, that's also my question, because he was able to interpret dreams.
Okay, so the answer, what's the answer?
No.
No,
Also
right?
er war in der Lage, Träume zu deuten, deswegen die Antwort ist nein.
Okay, so when you prophetically, when Christ here, when he died, right? Where did he go?
Und Christus prophetisch, als er starb, wohin ist er gegangen?
He went into the grave for 3 days,
Er
right?
ist ins Grab für 3 Tage lang gegangen.
But he's overcome, right? At the cross when he died, it says it is finished.
Weil
Right.
er hat überwunden, weil als er am Kreuz gestorben ist, hat er gesagt, es ist vollbracht.
Right?
Richtig?
So he is in this, he's overcome, right? He's an overcomer, but he's still in a physical captivity, right?
Also er ist ein Überwinder, aber er ist noch immer in der physischen Gefangenschaft.
So you have the same illustration here. We have the illustration with after 6 years, you get set free, but it's not until the end of the 7th that you actually physically go free,
Also
right?
man hat dieselbe Darstellung wie nach 6 Jahren, dass du schon freigesetzt wirst, aber es ist dann erst am Ende des 7. Jahres, wo du dann physisch nicht mehr in Gefangenschaft bist.
Okay, so it's not a contradiction that Joseph here is given the dreams, Mark, and he's received a lot of rain, which sets him free, but he's still in physical captivity until this point.
Also
Right.
das ist kein Zufall, dass Josef diese Träume hier dann deuten kann, weil er eben den Spätregen empfangen hat. Also er ist jetzt freigesetzt, aber er ist noch immer in Gefangenschaft bis zu diesem Punkt.
Right? Okay, so when you go down now to to chapter 41,
Gehen wir zu Kapitel 41.
Joseph, Pharaoh has this dream, right?
Pharao hat diesen Traum.
So it can only be here, right?
Es kann nur hier sein.
He has this dream, he goes to the magicians are not able to tell him the
Er hat
dream.
diesen Traum. Er geht zu den Magiern und die Magier sind nicht in der Lage, ihm den Traum zu deuten.
Okay, and this is when the butler remembers Joseph, and Joseph is brought before the king,
Da
right?
erinnert sich der Mundschenk jetzt an Josef und Josef wird vor den König gebracht.
But if you go to verse 42,
Gehen wir zu Vers 42.
we spoke about this last night.
Darüber haben wir gestern Abend gesprochen.
It says, and Pharaoh took off his ring from his hand and put it upon Joseph's hand and arrayed him in vestures of fine linen and put a gold chain about his neck, right? And I did mark this. If we go to, yes, Luke 15,
Also in Lukas 15,
verse 22.
Vers 22.
And this is the prodigal son returning to the father.
Das ist jetzt der verlorene Sohn, der zum Vater zurückkehrt.
It says, but the father said to his servants, bring forth the best robe and put it on him, and put a ring on his hand and shoes on his feet. Right? Same illustration, right?
Das ist dieselbe Darstellung.
So you can see the point where Joseph is now fully restored. I mean, in another prophetic sense, is right here, right in this box, right?
Wir können sehen, wenn Josef vollständig wiederhergestellt wird in einem anderen prophetischen Sinne, ist dann in dieser Box.
Okay, in this illustration, right?
Also in dieser Darstellung.
Okay, so you can see how he's marking both these experiences,
Man kann
right?
also sehen, wie er beide von diesen Erfahrungen markiert.
Okay, and when he got brought before Pharaoh, he just explained it to him. He says what God is about to do. So what God was about to do was speaking about at the end, right?
Und als er vor Pharao gebracht wurde, da hat er einfach erklärt, was eben kurz davor, also was Gott kurz davor stand zu tun, und er stand also hier und hat ihn vorwärts gewiesen aufs Ende.
Right? Okay, so now go to Daniel chapter 2.
Gehen wir jetzt zu Daniel 2.
I have struggled with these things in my mind for a long time, because there's always been things that were just not sitting. I couldn't find comfort in some things, let's say that much.
Also ich hatte lange Zeit eben Schwierigkeiten, das zu verstehen und lange nicht Frieden gefunden oder Ruhe gefunden in diesen Dingen.
Okay, so anyway, let's go to Daniel chapter 2.
Gehen wir zu Daniel 2.
Now, before we read, in fact, no, it doesn't matter. Let's read Daniel 2 first. We just compare this with Genesis 41, right?
Lesen wir zuerst mal Daniel 2 und wir vergleichen es mit 1. Mose 41,
Verse 1.
Vers 1.
It says, in the second year of the reign of Nebuchadnezzar, Nebuchadnezzar dreamed dreams wherewith his spirit was troubled and his sleep brake from him, right? So, if you just compare that, and just compare this with Genesis 41, verse 1.
Wir vergleichen das jetzt nochmal mit 1. Mose 41, Vers 1.
It says, and it came to pass at the end of 2 full years that Pharaoh dreamed, and behold, he stood by the river, right? And he has this double dream. But if you go down to verse 8.
Also hier hat diesen doppelten Traum. Gehen wir jetzt zu Vers 8.
And it came to pass in the morning that his spirit was troubled, and he sent and called for all the magicians of Egypt, right? So again, he has this dream and his spirit is troubled,
hat wieder diesen Traum und sein Geist ist beunruhigt.
Okay, so we know that the double dream there is just one dream.
Wir wissen, der doppelte Traum ist einfach ein Traum.
Okay, and it says here in Daniel chapter 2,
und in Daniel 2 sagt es,
it says Nebuchadnezzar dreamed dreams, right? Plural.
Nebukadnezar träumte Träume, also Mehrzahl.
Okay, so it's you can see that it's a parallel thought, right?
Man kann sehen, es ist ein Parallelgedanke.
And he does the very same thing. He says, then the king commanded to call the magicians and the astrologers and the sorcerers and the Chaldeans, for to show the king his dreams. So they came and stood before the king. So, if we just follow in the logic of that, Nebuchadnezzar is here, right?
Also Vers 2 haben wir gelesen und wenn wir jetzt einfach der Logik folgen, dann wäre Nebukadnezar hier.
Okay, so okay, and then you have verse 3.
Vers 3.
And the king said unto them, I have dreamed a dream, and my spirit was troubled to know the dream. Then spake the Chaldeans to the king in Syriac, O king, live forever, tell thy servants the dream, and we will show the interpretation. Now, that's obviously there for a reason, right? It says, then spake the Chaldeans to the king in Syriac.
Das
right?
ist also offensichtlich aus einem Grund hier geschrieben in Vers 4. Also ich glaube im Deutschen ist das Vers 1. Dass dort steht, dass er in der syrischen Sprache... Also im Deutschen ist es auch Vers 4. Dass er in der syrischen Sprache gesprochen hat.
And can't remember where it is, but they do the same. Okay, you know where that is in the story of when the Assyrian surrounds. It's in Isaiah, and it's also in.
For the Second Kings.
18.
Yes, but I think it's also in Isaiah. Go to 2 Kings.
Geht zu 2. Könige.
Okay, so yes, I've got it down there, right. So if you go, go to verse 26.
2. Könige 18, Vers 26.
Yeah, it doesn't say Syriac, it says Syria. Okay, it says, so this is marking the point when Rabshakeh comes and they've surrounded Jerusalem,
Das
right?
markiert den Punkt, wenn Rabshakeh kommt und sie Jerusalem umlagern.
So where does he surround Jerusalem in
Wo-
this story?
Wo umlagert
On the
er
board, on the
Jerusalem?
line.
In dieser Geschichte, also auf der Tafel, auf der Linie.
Yeah, it would be here. It's the sign, right?
Das wäre hier, das ist das Zeichen.
Okay, so it says, Then said Eliakim the son of Hilkiah and Shebna and Joan to Rabshakeh, Speak, I pray thee, to thy servants in the Syrian language. Right? It's exactly the same point, right?
Derselbe Punkt.
So, for we understand it, and talk not with us in the Jews' language in the ears of the people that are on the wall. Right? So, all I'm saying is that it's marked there is also that they say, speak to us in Syrian, right?
Also alles, was ich sagen will, es ist hier einfach auch markiert, dass sie sagen, spreche zu uns in Syrisch.
I don't know what that means, right?
Ich weiß nicht, was das
No, at
bedeutet.
this point for years, I still don't understand it, right?
Ich habe diesen Punkt seit Jahren gekannt, aber ich verstehe es immer noch nicht.
But nonetheless, when you go back to Daniel 2 and verse 4,
Aber nichtsdestotrotz, wenn wir zurück zu Daniel 2 und Vers 4 gehen,
it says, Then spake the Chaldeans to the king in Syriac, right? It's marking the same point, right?
spricht über diesen selben Punkt.
It says, O king, live forever, tell thy servants the dream, and we will show the interpretation. The king answered and said to the Chaldeans, and just before we go further, I mean, I say I don't understand it, but what I believe that it means is Syrian is like this Babylonian language, because in 2 Kings, just a couple of verses down, he says, no, we will speak in the Jews' language, right?
Also wenn ich sage, dass ich das nicht verstehe, meinte ich schon, dass ich weiß, also dass es die babylonische Sprache ist, weil wenn man weiter liest, ein paar Verse in 2. Könige 18, dann markiert es dort die jüdische Sprache.
Okay, and if you just keep your place there, go to Ezekiel chapter 3.
Halte deinen Finger, hier gehen wir zu Ezekiel 3.
When Ezekiel is sent to the Jews,
Wenn Ezekiel zu den Juden gesandt wird.
verse 4,
Vers 4.
And he said unto me, Son of man, go get thee into the house of Israel, and speak with my words unto them. For thou art not sent to a people of a strange speech, and of a hard language, but to the house of Israel. Not to many people of a strange speech and of a hard language, whose words thou canst not understand. Surely had I sent thee to them, they would have hearkened unto thee. But the house of Israel will not hearken unto thee, for they will not hearken unto me, for all the house of Israel are impudent and hard-hearted. So, okay, literally it was speaking about, they speak your own language, right?
Buchstäblich hat es darüber gesprochen, dass in der eigenen Sprache sprechen sollte.
But as I understand it, it's speaking about this language of how to understand the Bible, right?
Wie ich das verstehe, spricht es über die Sprache, wie wir die Bibel verstehen sollen.
Okay, they represent a people that should know the Bible and should understand what you're saying to them, right?
Sie stellen ein Volk dar, die die Bibel kennen sollten und verstehen sollten, was du zu ihnen sagst.
Not to a people that don't understand the Bible, right?
Nicht zu einem Volk, die die Bibel nicht verstehen.
Okay, so in the Bible, at least from my finite understanding, is that Hebrew is the language of prophecy, and Syriac, or which is Babylonian, is the language of confusion, right?
Also, wie ich das verstehen würde in meinem begrenzten Verständnis, ist Hebräisch, also die Sprache der Bibel. You said Bible prophecy?
The language of prophecy.
Also ist Hebräisch die Sprache der Prophetie, aber Syrisch ist eben diese Sprache der Verwirrung.
Okay, that's just, those are just my thoughts, but if you have a better explanation of that, then I'm open to hear that.
Das sind einfach meine Gedanken, aber wenn ihr eine bessere Erklärung dafür habt, dann bin ich offen, das zu hören.
Okay, so anyway, go back to Daniel 2.
Gehen wir zurück zu Daniel 2.
Verse 5.
Vers 5.
The king answered and said to the Chaldeans, the thing is gone from me. If ye will not make known unto me the dream with the interpretation thereof, ye shall be cut in pieces, and your houses shall be made a dunghill. But if ye show the dream and the interpretation thereof, ye shall receive of me gifts and rewards and great honour. Therefore show me the dream and the interpretation thereof. They answered again and said, Let the king tell his servants the dream, and we will show the interpretation of it. The king answered and said, I know of certainty that ye would gain the time, because ye see the thing is gone from me. But if ye will not make known unto me the dream, there is but one decree for you, for ye have prepared lying and corrupt words to speak before me, till the time be changed. Therefore tell me the dream, and I shall know that ye can show me the interpretation thereof. Okay, so 3 times he asks him this, right, to tell him the dream.
3-mal bittet sie, dass sie ihm den Traum sagen.
Okay, so we just used to take this and put it over this period of time, but I want us to understand that if you just follow the pattern, it's right here, right?
Wir haben das früher genommen und über eine lange Zeit ausgedehnt, aber wenn wir einfach dem Muster folgen, dann will ich euch zeigen, dass das hier markiert.
Okay, right? I have many thoughts. I've been praying a lot to the Lord. Please help us to understand this, right?
Ich habe viele Gedanken und ich habe viel zum Herrn gebetet und gesagt, bitte hilf uns, dass wir das verstehen.
Okay, so, verse 11.
Vers 11.
It says, And is a rare thing that the king requireth, there is none that can show it before the king except the gods, whose dwelling is not with flesh. So, according to Matthew 24, Luke 21, what do you have rising up here?
Gemäß Matthäus 24 und Lukas 21. Was kommt hier auf?
False prophets,
Falsche
right?
Propheten.
I would just make the suggestion that that's representing these right here, right?
Ich mache einfach den Vorschlag, dass es die hier darstellt.
Everything's going to be revealed, right?
Alles wird offenbart werden.
It says in verse 12,
Vers 12.
For this cause the king was angry and very furious, and commanded to destroy all the wise men of Babylon. So who's under condemnation here?
Wer ist hier unter Verdammnis?
False prophets and the truth.
Both classes, right?
Die falschen Propheten und die wahren, also beide Klassen.
Okay. It says, and the decree went forth that the wise men should be slain, right? So here you also have the death decree,
Hier haben
right?
wir auch das Todesdekret.
Okay, right. It says, and they sought Daniel and his fellows to be slain. Then Daniel answered with counsel and wisdom to Arioch, the captain of the king's guard, which was gone forth to slay the wise men of Babylon. And he answered and said to Arioch, the king's captain, Why is the decree so hasty from the king? Then Arioch made the thing known to Daniel. Then Daniel went and desired of the king that he would give him time. Right, and this has been the point that's bugged me for a long time, right?
Und das war der Punkt, der mich lange Zeit gewurmt hat.
Okay, so I have a question. What is a time in the Bible?
Ich habe eine Frage. Was ist eine Zeit in der Bibel?
1 year,
Ein Jahr.
right? Okay, so, and you'll see in a minute when we go a bit further, right?
Ihr werdet gleich sehen, wenn wir noch weitergehen.
So he asks them for time, and a time, biblically speaking, is a year, right?
bittet ihn um Zeit und eine Zeit, biblisch gesprochen, ist ein Jahr.
Okay, let's just go forward, right?
Gehen wir vorwärts.
So I want to suggest, at least at this point, right, that this... Well, so you finished with these? You want to stay on here? It doesn't matter, just so I know.
No, to be on the.
Okay, right. So just right here. Here is this time, which equals 1 year, right?
Also hier ist diese Zeit und das ist gleich ein Jahr.
So they come here, the death decree, right? The false prophets have rose up. It goes to them first, right? Because they always go first,
Die
right?
kommen hier an, hier ist das Todesdekret, die falschen Propheten stehen jetzt auf und er geht zu ihnen zuerst, weil die Falschen kommen immer zuerst.
Okay, but the death decree comes against both of them. Daniel asks them for time. right?
Das Todesdekret kommt aber gegen beide von ihnen und Daniel bittet jetzt um Zeit.
Okay, and it says, verse 19.
Vers 19.
Then was the secret revealed unto Daniel in the night vision. Then Daniel blessed the God of heaven. So,
verse 17.
I never. I mean, we can read, just go from verse 17.
Also geht nochmal zu Vers 17.
It says, Then Daniel went to his house and made the thing known to Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, his companions, that they would desire what?
Mercies.
Mercies, right?
Gnade.
Okay, so when's the time of mercy?
Wann ist die Zeit der Gnade?
Yes, right there, right?
In der kleinen Box.
Okay, so verse 19.
Vers 19.
Then was the secret revealed unto Daniel in a night vision. So, prophetically speaking, what has happened?
Prophetisch gesprochen, was ist geschehen?
Right, they have the revelation. So therefore, what has happened?
Sie haben die Offenbarung, deswegen was ist geschehen?
What does it mean for them?
Was bedeutet das für sie?
I'm not referring to the visions. Yes, that's true. But what does it mean?
Was
If you get the revelation, what does it now mean for you?
Wenn du die Offenbarung erhältst, was bedeutet das für dich?
If you receive it, you are proto-repentance.
Okay, that's all part of what I'm talking about. So what about Daniel now and his colleagues? What about them?
Und wenn du das erhältst, wirst du zur Buße geführt. Aber was ist jetzt mit Daniel und seinen Gefährten?
Set free.
Yeah, okay, they've been set free, right? That's what it marks, right?
Sie wurden befreit, das markiert es.
Okay, because you're in bondage because you don't understand the truth, right?
Du bist nämlich in Knechtschaft, weil du die Wahrheit nicht verstehst.
Okay, remember Jeremiah, where was he sanctified?
Denk daran, Jeremia, wo wurde er geheiligt?
Okay, this is the belly, right?
Im Bauch, das ist der Bauch.
Why is he sanctified in here?
Warum wird er hier geheiligt?
Made perfect by suffering.
No, we're dealing with this thought. Think about this thought. They've had a revelation, right? Why is he sanctified in here?
Bleibt bei diesem Gedanken, sie hatten also die Offenbarung und warum wird er hier drin geheiligt?
What's happened to Daniel? And I just compare the thoughts. It's not difficult.
Die Gedanken.
Because he received the revelation also.
Oh, okay, so before he received the revelation, what was keeping him in bondage?
Bevor er die Offenbarung erhalten hat, was hat ihn in Knechtschaft gehalten?
The lack of understanding, the error that was in his mind, right?
Also der Mangel an Verständnis, der Irrtum, der in seinem Verstand
Just a
war.
question, Mark. We're comparing Daniel with Joseph, right? So Daniel's already gone through, but he's not set free completely until he sets his friends free. Is that right? If Daniel's comparing with Joseph, Joseph's already been set free in the first box, but he's not completely set free until he goes to his three friends.
What are you talking about? His three friends that
Well, his three friends have received the revelation here. Daniel's bringing them to that point. We are comparing Daniel with Joseph, right? And Joseph had
nothing to do with Daniel and Joseph here. Daniel chapter 1, all four of them are there. They're in this box at the end, right? And
Daniel's not the same as Joseph.
Scott,
I'm just-
we're dealing with this box, right?
No,
I don't know.
I get that, but
Just put those thoughts away, right? We never compared anybody with MD at this moment. We're comparing.
Genesis 41 were to compare with Daniel.
Yeah, we're here at this box, right? We're not dealing with this box. It's a different thought. We're down here. Revelation, right? This is where Pharaoh has the dream, Nebuchadnezzar has the dream, right? This is what we're dealing with, right?
Wir handeln jetzt nur mit dieser Box, weil wir vergleichen jetzt Pharao, der den Traum hatte, mit Nebukadnezar, der hier den Traum hat.
Okay, in Daniel chapter 1, just to remind you of this point.
Und nochmal zur Erinnerung in Daniel 1.
Excuse me. In verse 17.
Vers 17.
It says, As for these 4 children, God gave them knowledge and skill in all learning and wisdom, and Daniel had understanding in all visions and dreams. It's the same point as in Daniel 2, and verse 19.
Das ist
Right?
derselbe Punkt wie in Daniel 2, Vers 19.
Right? Same point where they're delivered by understanding the truth. Right?
Derselbe Punkt, wo sie befreit werden, weil sie die Wahrheit verstehen.
John 8:32. What does it say?
Was sagt es in Johannes 8, Vers 32?
You shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free.
Ihr
Right?
werdet die Wahrheit erkennen und die Wahrheit wird euch frei machen.
Free from what?
Frei von was?
Free from the bondage of error. Right?
Frei von der Knechtschaft des Irrtums.
Right? Are we still in bondage to error?
Sind wir noch in Knechtschaft zum Irrtum?
Yes, because we understand things according to our finite minds.
Ja,
Right?
weil wir Dinge noch immer gemäß unserem begrenzten Verstand
And
verstehen.
we have been brought down to this experience, right?
Wir werden zu dieser Erfahrung gebracht.
And what do we need to pray for?
Um was müssen wir beten?
Why we're dealing with this topic? I'm not asking a question based upon anything else but what we are dealing with. So what is it you have to pray for?
Für
From
was
what?
müssen wir beten? Befreiung von was?
Error.
From error, right?
Befreiung von
Okay,
Irrtum.
and Jeremiah, just to remind you, just mentioned this a minute ago, Jeremiah chapter 1,
Gehen wir nochmal zu Jeremia 1, das hatte ich vorhin erwähnt.
verse 5.
Vers 5.
It's clear to see how much have we been getting reproved lately about some thoughts that we thought we understood, right?
Das ist klar zu sehen, wie oft wir vor kurzem getadelt wurden wegen Gedanken, wo wir gedacht haben, wir hätten was verstanden.
Okay, it says, before I formed thee in the belly, I knew thee. And before thou camest forth out of the womb, I sanctified thee. So before you can come out of the womb, you have to be clean, right?
Vers 5. Bevor du aus dem Mutterleib kommst, musst du rein sein.
What sanctifies us?
Was heiligt uns?
According to John 17, okay, the truth.
Gemäß Johannes 17 steht die Wahrheit.
I sanctified thee and ordained thee a prophet unto the nations. Then said I, Ah, Lord God, behold, I cannot speak, for I am a child. But the Lord said to me, Say not, I am a child, for thou shalt go to all that I shall send thee, and whatsoever I command thee, thou shalt speak. Right? In order to be God's mouthpiece, you have to have a pure message, right?
Damit du Gottes Mundstück sein kannst, musst du eine reine Botschaft haben.
You have to have a message that's not been tainted by man's thoughts,
Du musst
right?
eine Botschaft haben, die nicht befleckt ist von menschlichen Gedanken.
Okay, so back to Daniel 2 and verse 19.
Zurück zu Daniel 2, Vers 19.
So when you get to this point, they've been set free,
Wenn man
right?
zu diesem Punkt ankommt, da wurden sie ja freigesetzt.
Because the truth shall make you free,
Weil die
right?
Wahrheit wird euch frei machen.
Okay, verse 20.
Vers 20.
Now, at this point, Daniel, when he comes and stands before the king, he reveals everything to him, right?
Und an diesem Punkt, wenn Daniel jetzt vor dem König steht, da offenbart er ihm alles.
Right? It just goes from this point and he starts telling him the dream all the way down, right?
Fängt jetzt von diesem Punkt an und er erzählt ihm dann die ganze Zeit hindurch den Traum.
Okay. And it brings you all the way down to verse 46.
Und das bringt dich dann bis zu Vers 46.
Okay. So, and I made this point, right? So Daniel is standing at the end here telling the king the dream, right?
Ich habe diesen Punkt gemacht, Daniel steht dann am Ende und sagt dem König den Traum.
And he's telling him what's going to shortly come to pass, right?
Und er sagt ihm, was in Kürze geschehen soll.
Okay, and I made this point. Just go back to Joel chapter 3, so remind us of this point.
Diesen Punkt gemacht, gehen wir nochmal zurück zu Joel 3.
Vers-
You just pointed to here.
Yes, he's standing at the end.
But yesterday you showed that it's here where he stands before him. Joseph, he tells him to dream.
Here?
Yes.
Maybe I did. But it can't.
Before both of us, this at the beginning when he reveals that.
Potiphar?
No, before Pharaoh.
Before
yes,
Pharaoh.
Pharaoh.
Yes, okay, I remember that. But in this case here, right, if this case here, right, so where were we? In Daniel 2 and verse 19.
Das ist Daniel 2, Vers 19.
This is marking when you're set free, right?
Das markiert ja, wenn du freigesetzt
So
wirst.
it has to be standing at the end when he's telling him, right?
Also du musst am Ende stehen, wenn, also Daniel muss am Ende stehen, wenn er es ihm
There
sagt.
must also be something about Genesis 41 that we're not understanding, because we know that he tells him and then he puts the garment on him, right?
Und da ist vielleicht auch in 1. Mose 41 etwas, was wir noch nicht verstehen, weil er sagt es ihm, ja, und dann tut er das Gewand auf ihn.
Okay, we have to look at that. It's something we have to understand, right? But
Wir müssen uns das anschauen, das ist noch etwas, was wir verstehen müssen.
okay, but the point is that you can clearly see that this is the point where he's been delivered, and he's now standing there explaining to him the dream, right?
Und man kann klar sehen, dass er jetzt an dem Punkt ist, wo er befreit wurde, und er steht jetzt dort und erklärt ihm den Traum.
Okay, now we were Joel chapter 3
Gehen wir jetzt zu Joel 3,
and verse 14.
Vers 14.
It says, multitudes, multitudes in the valley of decision, for the day of the Lord is near in the valley of decision.
Im
Right.
Deutschen ist es Kapitel 4.
Okay, so just remind you of this point and go to 1 Kings 18.
Euch an den Punkt zu erinnern, gehen wir zu 1. Könige 18.
It's when Elijah is on Mount Carmel,
Da
right?
ist Elia auf Berg Karmel.
And the false prophets go first,
Die falschen Propheten gehen zuerst.
right? And we understand that when Elijah brings the fire down on the altar, it's parallel in it's the blessing, but it's parallel in the destruction of Jerusalem.
Und wir verstehen, wenn Elia das Feuer vom Himmel auf den Altar runterholt, dann ist es parallel zum Segen, aber es markiert die Zerstörung von Jerusalem.
Okay, so if you just go to verse 36,
Gehen wir jetzt zu Vers 36.
it says, it came to pass at the time of the offering of the evening sacrifice. This is when the Lord says, it is done, it is finished,
Wenn
right?
der Herr sagt, es ist geschehen, es ist vollbracht.
That Elijah the prophet came near and said, Lord God of Abraham, Isaac, and of Israel, let it be known this day that thou art God in Israel, and that I am thy servant, and I have done all these things at thy word. So he's going to prove now that he is the true prophet, right?
Er wird jetzt beweisen, dass er der wahre Prophet ist.
Hear me, O Lord, hear me, that this people may know that thou art the Lord God, and that thou hast turned their heart back again. Then the fire of the Lord fell and consumed the burnt sacrifice. This is Daniel 2, verse 19.
Also Vers 38, das ist Daniel 2, Vers 19.
It's the point where they get delivered,
Das ist der
right?
Punkt, wenn sie befreit werden.
Because he gives them understanding in all visions and dreams,
Weil er
right?
gibt ihnen Verständnis in allen Visionen und Träumen.
This is what proves that you're the true God, right?
Das beweist dann, das beweist dann, dass du der wahre Gott bist.
Okay, after all, that's what I said. That
Reflect.
you represent the true God, right?
Also, dass du den wahren Gott darstellst.
Right? And is there now a short time lapse for the wicked to repent?
Gibt es jetzt dort eine kurze Zeitspanne, wo die Bösen noch Buße tun können?
Yes, right?
Ja.
So, right there they have this short space to repent, right?
Genau, dort haben sie diese kurze Zeit, um Buße zu tun.
Okay, so go back to Daniel chapter 2, right?
Geht zurück zu Daniel 2.
So Daniel is revealing all these things to the king, right?
Daniel offenbart jetzt dem König all diese Dinge.
And it brings you down to verse 46.
Bringt dich zu Vers 46 hinunter.
It says, then the king Nebuchadnezzar fell upon his face and worshipped Daniel. So what's happening to Nebuchadnezzar now?
Was geschieht jetzt mit Nebukadnezar?
Yeah, he's humbling himself, right? Just like they did on Mount Carmel, right?
Er demütigt sich, so wie sie es auf Berg Karmel getan haben.
And commanded that they should offer an oblation and sweet odours unto him. The king answered unto Daniel and said, of a truth it is that your God is a God of gods and a Lord of kings and a revealer of secrets, seeing thou couldest reveal this secret. So, what did they reveal?
Was haben sie offenbart?
Parables.
Yes, that's true, the parables. What the point is that they are now able to bring every story in the Bible together to come to this conclusion, right?
Also die Gleichnisse, sie sind jetzt in der Lage, dass sie jede Geschichte in der Bibel zusammenbringen können, um das zu offenbaren.
Now it says that when you stand before the kingly courts, what will you have an opportunity to do?
Und das sagt, wenn du vor den königlichen Gerichtshöfen stehst, zu was wirst du eine Gelegenheit haben zu tun?
Für Testimony to give a witness.
Ein Zeugnis zu geben.
Okay. You're going to give a testimony and you're going to be a witness, right?
Du wirst ein Zeugnis geben, du wirst immer ein Zeuge sein.
Okay, but those are just words. What does it mean?
Das sind einfach nur Worte. Was bedeutet das?
How are you going to give a testimony and a witness?
Wie wirst du ein Zeugnis
Bring all
geben?
these truths together.
Sister White says that you will have an opportunity to defend the truth that you believe, right?
Ellen White sagt, du wirst dann eine Gelegenheit haben, die Wahrheit zu verteidigen, die du glaubst.
And through this means, many people will come to a knowledge of the truth.
Und auf diese Weise werden viele Leute zur Erkenntnis der Wahrheit kommen.
Right? Because if you just go to Matthew 24,
Gehen wir zu Matthäus 24,
verse 14.
Vers 14.
It says, and this gospel of the kingdom shall be preached in all the world for a witness unto all nations, and then shall the end come. Right? So, okay, we can go back to Daniel 2.
Geht zurück zu Daniel 2.
Okay, we have to understand this point in verse 19, and maybe he's not quite at the end there when he's doing that, because obviously it's when Nebuchadnezzar is humbled that he, because in Daniel 2, go to verse 47.
Gehen wir in Daniel 2 zu Vers 47.
The king answered unto Daniel, said, of a truth it is that your God is a God of gods and a Lord of kings and a revealer of secrets, seeing thou couldest reveal this secret. Then the king made Daniel a great man and gave him many great gifts and made him ruler over the whole province of Babylon and the chief of the governors over all the wise men of Babylon. Right? So, so maybe verse 19 is not fully the point where you're delivered, but you're able to, the Lord reveals this point where you're able to give a witness which will lead to your point where you're delivered.
Also vielleicht ist Vers 19 nicht ganz am Ende, sondern das ist, wenn der Herr dir jetzt schon Dinge offenbart, damit du ein Zeugnis geben kannst, und das führt dich dann zu dem Punkt, wenn du befreit wirst.
Right. Anyway, the point is that we have to understand this. I mean, you giving the witness is giving this testimony right here of the truth.
Und der Punkt ist eben, wir müssen das verstehen, weil wenn du dieses Zeugnis gibst, das ist, wenn du hier dieses Zeugnis für die Wahrheit ablegst.
Okay, we have to look at these things very closely.
Wir müssen
Right?
uns die Dinge ganz genau anschauen.
Okay, now if you go, and the only point I want to make is from the point that Daniel stands and tells the king. He just tells him the dream, and immediately the king's humbled in the dust and he sets them up over the kingdom.
Also
Right.
ein Punkt, den wir von Daniel sehen können, ist, dass Daniel ihm den Traum sagt und sofort wird der König in den Staub gedemütigt und er setzt Daniel über das ganze Königreich.
And if we just compare that with Genesis 41,
Wenn wir das einfach mit 1. Mose 41 vergleichen,
okay, this might help us to understand this, right?
mag uns helfen, das zu verstehen.
Go to verse 38.
Gehen wir zu Vers 38.
This is after Joseph has told him the dream.
Das ist nachdem Josef ihm den Traum gesagt hat.
And Pharaoh said unto his servants, Can we find such an one as this, a man in whom the Spirit of God is? And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, Forasmuch as God hath showed thee all this, there is none so discreet and wise as thou art. Thou shalt be over my house, and according to all thy word shall all my people be ruled. Only in the throne will I be greater than thou. So this is the same point as where Nebuchadnezzar does it in Daniel 2, verse 46, right?
Das ist derselbe Punkt, wie das Nebukadnezar in Daniel 2, Vers 46 macht.
It's after he gives him the witness, right?
Nachdem ihm also das Zeugnis gibt.
Okay, so anyway, that maybe help us understand that point.
Das mag uns helfen, diesen Punkt zu verstehen.
Okay, but what I want to do now, go to the quote that I posted.
Gehen wir jetzt aber zu dem Zitat, das ich gepostet habe.
Right, so just let's begin from Education 174.
Fangen wir an, das ist von Erziehung 174.
It says, God has revealed in his law the principles that underlie all true prosperity, both of nations and of individuals. This is your wisdom and your understanding. Moses declared to the Israelites of the law of God, it is not a vain thing for you because it is your life. The blessings thus assured to Israel are on the same conditions and in the same degree assured to every nation and every individual under the broad heavens. Right? So, in this first paragraph, not here. Keep reading, excuse me.
Wir lesen noch weiter.
The power exercised by every ruler on earth is heaven imparted, and upon his use of the power thus bestowed his success depends. To each the word of the divine watcher is, I girded thee, though thou hast not known me. And to teach the words spoken to Nebuchadnezzar and to each the words spoken to Nebuchadnezzar of old are the lesson of life. Break off thy sins by righteousness and thine iniquities by showing mercy to the poor, if it may be a lengthening of thy tranquility. And she quotes Daniel 4, right?
Sie zitiert Daniel 4.
Right?
Okay.
Okay, so next paragraph.
Nächster Absatz.
To understand these things, to understand that righteousness exalteth a nation, that the throne is established by righteousness and upholden by mercy, to recognize the outworking of these principles in the manifestation of his power, who removeth kings and setteth up kings. She quotes Daniel 2, right?
Zitiert sie Daniel 2.
This is to understand the philosophy of history. In the Word of God only is this clearly set forth. Here it is shown that the strength of nations, as of individuals, is not found in the opportunities or facilities that appear to make them invincible. It is not found in their boasted greatness. It is measured by the fidelity with which they fulfill God's purpose. An illustration of this truth is found in the history of ancient Babylon. To Nebuchadnezzar, the king, the true object of national government was represented under the figure of a great tree. Okay, this is Daniel 4, right?
Das ist Daniel 4.
Whose height reached unto heaven, and the sight thereof to the end of all the earth. So we know that this tree is representing the civil power that you stand before here in this time here, right?
Wir wissen, dass dieser Baum die Staatsmacht darstellt, vor der du in dieser Zeit stehst.
Yes?
Ja.
Okay. So it's the tree in the garden, right?
Das ist der Baum im Garten.
and the sight thereof to the end of all the earth. The leaves thereof were fair, and the fruit thereof much, and in it was meat for all. Under its shadow the beasts of the field dwelt, and among its branches the birds of the air had their habitation. Daniel 4, 11 and 12. This representation shows the character of a government that fulfills God's purpose. So she tells us quite clearly, the tree represents a government, right?
Sie sagt uns ganz klar, dass der Baum eine Regierung darstellt.
A government that protects and upbuilds the nation. God exalted Babylon that it might fulfill this purpose. Prosperity attended the nation until it reached a height of wealth and power that has never since been equalled, fitly represented in the scriptures by the inspired symbol, a head of gold. Daniel 2:38. So what's she constantly doing?
Was macht sie hier beständig?
She's paralleling them, right?
Sie setzt Daniel 2 und Daniel 4 parallel.
But the king failed of recognizing the power that had exalted him. Nebuchadnezzar, in the pride of his heart, said, Is not this great Babylon that I have built for the house of the kingdom by the might of my power and for the honor of my majesty? Daniel 4.
Daniel 4.
Instead of being a protector of men, Babylon became a proud and cruel oppressor. The words of inspiration, picturing the cruelty and greed of rulers in Israel, reveal the secret of Babylon's fall and of the fall of many another kingdom since the world began. Ye eat the fat, and ye clothe you with the wool. Ye kill them that are fed, but ye feed not the flock. The diseased have ye not strengthened, neither have ye healed that which was sick, neither have ye bound up that which was broken, neither have ye brought again that which was driven away. Neither have ye sought that which was lost, but with force and with cruelty have ye ruled them. To the ruler of Babylon came the sentence of the divine watcher, O king, to thee it is spoken, the kingdom is departed from thee. Daniel 4, right? So, because of this, now go to Daniel 4, right?
Deshalb gehen wir zu Daniel 4.
I just want to make a couple of points here.
Ich möchte hier ein paar Punkte machen.
Verse 1.
Daniel 4, Vers 1.
It says,
Im Deutschen ist es noch Kapitel 3, Vers 31.
It says, Nebuchadnezzar the king unto all people, nations, and languages that dwell in all the earth, peace be multiplied unto you. I thought it good to show the signs and wonders that the high God hath wrought toward me. How great are his signs, and how mighty are his wonders. His kingdom is an everlasting kingdom, and his dominion is from generation to generation. I, Nebuchadnezzar, was at rest in mine house and flourishing in my palace. I saw a dream which made me afraid, and the thoughts upon my bed and the visions of my head troubled me. So the first three verses, what's Nebuchadnezzar doing?
Also in diesen ersten Versen, 3 Versen, was macht Nebukadnezar?
Yes, but he's looking back, the point is, right? He's somewhere in the future point from this, and he's referring back to this experience that he had, right?
Also Nebukadnezar, er schaut zurück, er ist irgendwo in einem zukünftigen Punkt und er schaut jetzt auf seine Erfahrung zurück, die er gehabt hat.
Right? Right?
In verse 4 he starts to point back, but yes, it's in verse 1.
So that's what I'm saying. He says, look, I thought to show the signs and wonders. So what's he going to show? He's going to show how he came to this point, right?
Er sagt, ich hatte gedacht, dass ich zeigen werde, diese Zeichen und Wunder. Also er fängt jetzt an zu zeigen, wie er zu diesem Punkt, zu der Erfahrung gekommen ist.
Nebuchadnezzar here is somebody that's been converted, right?
Nebukadnezar ist hier jemand, der bekehrt wurde.
Okay, like Pharaoh in Genesis 41, he also became converted,
So wie
right?
Pharao in 1. Mose 41, er wurde auch bekehrt.
Right?
Richtig.
Okay, so it says, verse 5.
Vers 5.
I saw a dream which made me afraid, and the thoughts upon my bed and the visions of my head troubled me. It's exactly the same as Daniel 2 in Genesis 41, right?
Das ist im Deutschen jetzt Kapitel 4, Vers 2. Und das ist genau dasselbe wie in 1. Mose 41.
right? And he does the same thing, right? Verse 7.
Dann macht er dasselbe
Verse 6, sorry.
im deutschen Vers 3.
Therefore made I a decree to bring in all the wise men of Babylon before me, that they may make known unto me the interpretation of the dream. Then came in the magicians, the astrologers, the Chaldeans, and the soothsayers, and I told the dream before them, but they did not make known unto me the interpretation thereof. Right? So there's 3 times he spoke in Daniel 2, or just in this one verse here. Right?
Die 3-mal, wo er in Daniel 2 gesprochen hat, sind hier in diesem einen Vers enthalten.
But at last Daniel came in before me, whose name was Belteshazzar, according to the name of my God, and in whom is the spirit of the holy gods. And before him I told the dream, saying, O Belteshazzar, master of the magicians, because I know that the spirit of the holy gods is in thee, and no secret troubleth thee, tell me the visions of my dream that I have seen, and the interpretation thereof. Okay, so he now relays the dream to him, right?
Jetzt zeigt er ihm den Traum, also er legt ihn aus.
Okay, and Daniel begins to unfold it to him, right?
Daniel fängt jetzt an, ihm den Traum zu entfalten.
Okay, and it says,
I have a question. Why does it say in verse 9 that before Daniel laid out the dream that he already knew that he could interpret dreams?
because of Genesis 41.
But you said that, so it's the same as Joseph, but you said earlier on that that's something
No, I
different.
didn't say it. You're not listening to what I'm saying. I'm saying we were dealing with this box, right? All we were dealing was with this box. You were jumping back to this box. I said we were dealing with this.
Right, okay, but I'm sorry, I'm confused on that. When we were saying we were dealing with this box, you were, at least my understanding, you were implying that that was the first point where Daniel received all visions and dreams.
And according to Daniel chapter 1 and according to Daniel chapter 2, that's what it's marking.
Also gemäß Daniel 1 und gemäß Daniel 2 ist es hier, wenn sie alle Visionen und Träume haben.
Daniel 4, that's
It doesn't matter. That's not how we study the Bible. They study the Bible by bringing things line upon line together. So when you bring Genesis 41 on, you have Joseph here already given dreams, right?
Wir studieren die Bibel ja Linie auf Linie und bringen das zusammen. Deswegen gemäß 1. Mose 41 haben wir hier schon Josef, der schon Träume deuten kann.
Okay, so when you bring it line upon line together, you have Daniel's now here, Daniel chapter 4, he already knows that he can interpret dreams.
Wenn wir also Daniel Linie auf Linie zusammenbringen, dann können wir in Daniel 4 sehen, dass er hier dann schon weiß, dass Daniel Träume deuten kann.
It's not chronology.
no, I'm
It's
not
not
suggesting.
chronological.
Okay, but literally, he's talking about chronologically in history, right? He's going back to Daniel to previous time, right?
Und chronologisch in der Geschichte, da bezieht er sich jetzt, wo Daniel das schon zum vorherigen Zeitpunkt konnte.
But he's saying, I told him, he's saying,
Also es geht hier um Vers 6 im Deutsch.
and he's quoting what he said to him then in verse 9. It's not like he's saying, I now know that Daniel was interpreting dreams. He's quoting him what he said to him back then.
So what's your point? That's what I'm saying. It's not chronology.
Sorry, you're just losing me when you're saying that, Mark. It's like I'm not understanding.
You would have to say, you would have to go and say Daniel 2 and Daniel 4 are two different things. Sister White's putting them together.
No, of course they're the same. But
But Scott, you're
saying that you said earlier on that Daniel 2 and Genesis 41 are different.
no, I didn't say they were different.
But you were implying that.
No, I wasn't implying that. You had this thought. What I'm saying to you is that we were dealing with this box. I just wanted you to focus the parallel with Genesis 41 on this point where he has the dream, not when Joseph was in prison. Nothing to do with it at this point. We were just paralleling these two thoughts, right?
Okay, but you were implying that Daniel at that point was
he
the
keeps-
first time that he had visions
He
and
keeps
dreams.
saying that, yeah, in that story,
But how can that be when he's already had visions and dreams?
Scott, in that story, what's hard for you to understand about that? In that story, there's nowhere else in that story you see him having visions of me, but that's not how we study the Bible.
That's the point I made. We already paralleled it with Genesis 41, so that we already know line upon line that he's already had visions and dreams. And here in Daniel 4 verse 9 it proves that.
I don't know what's wrong with you, Scott. I mean, that's the point I made. When we were talking about Daniel 2 is only dealing with the point in Genesis 41 where Pharaoh has a dream.
Also Daniel 2 handelt nur darüber, wie in 1. Mose 41, wo Pharao den Traum hat.
Genesis 41, Daniel 2, they are a parallel, right?
Also 1. Mose 41 und Daniel 2 sind eine Parallele.
So without us, if we hadn't read Genesis 39 and 40 beforehand, you wouldn't know anything to do with this.
Wenn wir 1. Mose 39 und 40 nicht gelesen hätten, wüssten wir nichts darüber.
And I wasn't dealing with that, I was just saying to you, we're not dealing with that, we're dealing with this,
Und
right?
da hatte ich ihm gesagt, wir handeln jetzt nicht darüber, sondern darüber.
Doesn't deny the fact that this is taking place. We've already marked it on the board. But I'm just showing that in Daniel 2, as far as you can see there, that is paralleling when Joseph, right, gives the dream to Pharaoh.
Also das verleugnet nicht, dass das auch hier ist, aber in Daniel 2 ist es dann hier, wenn Josef dann den Traum
I understand that, and I agree with all of that. It's the only point where I'm tripping up is that when we were explaining about that second box there, is that you were suggesting...
No, you keep saying I'm implying and suggesting. I didn't say any of those things.
I've got it written down what you said. It's that you were suggesting that was the first point where Daniel and Daniel and his three friends interpret dreams.
Yes, in this story.
Also
There's nowhere else in Daniel 2 you see it apart from at this point,
Okay,
right?
Can I ask why you were emphasising that point then?
Because
in other stories you can see it. What was
Because we're just dealing with this story. I don't want any confusion. I just want this point to marry up with this point. That's all I was doing.
Okay, sorry.
ich wollte
Had
nur
the
zeigen,
opposite effect for me. I thought you were trying to say that that's the first point where Daniel has visions and dreams.
In that story.
also ich wollte nur zeigen, dass in Daniel 2 in dieser Geschichte, da ist der erste Punkt, wenn Daniel Visionen und Träume hat.
In the book of Daniel chapter 1, right? It's where the first time you see it, right?
In Daniel 1, das ist zum ersten Mal.
It's the same point as Daniel 2.
Das ist derselbe Punkt wie in Daniel 2.
So you can't go in the book of Daniel anywhere and see where he has it before.
Du kannst also nirgendwo zum Buch Daniel gehen, woanders, um
I'm
zu
really
sehen, dass es
misunderstanding
zuvor
the
ist.
point where you're saying that we don't understand the Bible just by reading one story, that we bring everything together. So in my mind, when we're bringing everything together, it's clear for me that Daniel's had visions before this.
Scott, that might be true, and that's no problem. But I'm saying in the book of Daniel, right?
But why then are you making
Because
that point?
then we bring the thought. When we come to Daniel chapter 4, that's when you bring other stories together and you say, now this is how you can show this point,
Okay,
right?
okay, sorry.
Also wenn wir zu Daniel Kapitel 4 gehen, dann kann man zeigen, dass er das auch schon zuvor hatte. Aber in den vorherigen Kapiteln kann man das nur sehen, wenn das also hier in der zweiten Box.
Otherwise, you're not letting the Bible explain itself, right?
Sonst erlaubt man der Bibel nicht, dass sie sich selbst erklärt.
Okay, and the point is, I keep saying, don't preempt things, right? You've got to let the Bible explain itself, and then when you come to a point, you bring line upon line and say, okay, therefore when you go back, must be referring to this point here.
Und
Right.
den Punkt, den ich immer wieder betone, ist, dass man keine Annahmen machen soll, sondern wenn man zu einem Punkt kommt, dann soll man eben alles Linie auf Linie zusammenbringen und dann kann man diese Beweise sehen.
Okay, so in verse 9 it says, O Belteshazzar, master of the magicians, because I know that the Spirit of the Holy God is in thee, and no secret troubleth thee. If you're understanding things correctly, Daniel 1, Daniel 2 and Daniel 4, they're all marking the same point, right?
Im Deutschen Vers 6, wenn man Dinge richtig versteht, dann kann man verstehen, dass Daniel 1, Daniel 2
And 4.
und 4 denselben Punkt markiert.
Okay? So there's nowhere in the book of Daniel, if you're doing that, you can go back to.
Nirgendwo anders im Buch Daniel, wenn du das weißt, kannst du da zurückging.
So, but in Genesis 40, you have this point.
Aber in
Right?
1. Mose 40, da hat man diesen Punkt.
Okay, because that's also what, when the butler was standing before the king, what did he say?
Als der Mundschenk vor dem König stand, was hat er gesagt?
I know somebody that can.
Right, so that's how he knows it, right?
Ich kenne jemanden, der Träume deuten kann. Daher wusste er das dann.
Okay, that's might be hard for some people to grasp, but that's how we study the Bible.
Aber
Right?
das mag vielleicht schwierig sein, dass manche das verstehen, aber so studieren wir die Bibel.
Okay, so right, so anyway, Daniel's here. I want to just get this point before we close. Daniel's here, and he is unfolding this vision to Nebuchadnezzar.
Daniel ist jetzt hier und er entfaltet die Vision Nebukadnezar.
In verse 28.
Und jetzt Vers 25.
It says, all this came upon the king Nebuchadnezzar. At the end of 12 months, he walked in the palace of the kingdom of Babylon, and the king spake and said, is not this great Babylon that I have built for the house of the kingdom of the might of my power and for the honour of my majesty? While the word was in the king's mouth, there fell a voice from heaven, saying, O King Nebuchadnezzar, to thee it is spoken, the kingdom is departed from thee. Now this is the punishment on Babylon,
Das ist
right?
die Bestrafung auf Babylon.
Okay, so these 12 months must have some relation to this time.
Diese
Right.
12 Monate müssen irgendwie in Bezug auf diese Zeit stehen.
Okay, and it brings me to my last point, is just some thoughts. Go to Luke 13.
Und das bringt mich zum letzten Punkt. Gehen wir zu Lukas 13, das sind noch ein paar Gedanken.
Because this is the sort of parallel internally.
Weil das ist intern eine Parallele dazu.
Verse 6.
Vers 6.
He spake also this parable. A certain man had a fig tree planted in his vineyard. Where is he beginning?
Wo fängt er an?
Okay, so where is that?
Anfang, wenn er gepflanzt wird. Also wo ist das?
This white thing on.
Yeah, you just, okay, we know if we're dealing with this, but we're just dealing with the parable. So here, where he sows the seed,
Also
right?
es wäre hier, aber in dem Gleichnis, also hier seht ihr ja den Samen.
Ezekiel 17, right?
Ezekiel 17.
Takes the tree and he plants it there, right?
Nimmt den Baum und pflanzt ihn.
Okay, it says, a certain man had a fig tree planted in his vineyard, and he came and sought fruit thereon, and found none. Where does he come to find fruit?
Wo kommt er, Frucht zu
Okay,
finden?
verse 7.
Vers 7.
Then said he unto the dresser of this vineyard, Behold, these 3 years I come seeking fruit on this fig tree, and find none, cut it down. This is the point that bugged me for a long time.
Das ist der Punkt, der mich lange Zeit gewurmt hat.
Because if you just understand the Bible, from here to here is how many years?
Wenn wir die Bibel verstehen, von hier bis hier sind wie viele Jahre?
3 years.
3 Jahre.
Because it was from temple cleansing to temple cleansing was these 3 years.
Weil das war von Tempelreinigung bis Tempelreinigung, diese 3
From
Jahre.
Passover to Passover.
Von
Right?
Passa bis Passa.
These were these 3 years, right?
Das waren diese 3 Jahre.
And this is the exact same 3 years that he was ministering,
Das
right?
sind dieselben 3 Jahre, wo er gedient hat.
So it always bugged me, why was it pointing here, right? I couldn't fathom that in my head.
Das hat mich immer gewurmt, warum das dann darauf gedeutet hat. Ich konnte das nicht in Übereinstimmung bringen in meinem Verstand.
Okay, it says, Behold, these 3 years I come seeking fruit on this fig tree and find none. So Christ is illustrating the work that he's been doing since he began at the first temple cleansing,
Also
right?
Christus stellt hier sein Werk dar, was er seit der ersten Tempelreinigung angefangen hat zu tun.
But then he says, right,
Dann sagt er aber,
these 3 years I come seeking fruit on this fig tree and find none, cut it down. Why cumbereth it the ground? And he answering said unto him, Lord, let it alone this year also, till I shall dig about and dung it. And if it bear fruit, well, and if not, then after that thou shalt cut it down. Now the only problem I have, it's not talking about a literal full year, right?
Das einzige Problem, was ich damit habe, es spricht ja nicht über ein buchstäbliches ganzes Jahr.
Okay, in Daniel chapter 4 here, you have a literal year,
In
right?
Daniel 4 hat man ein buchstäbliches Jahr.
But as I would understand it, Christ is taking this year that he's talking about here, he's taken from Daniel 4.
Wie ich das verstehe, ist, dass Christus, wenn er hier über dieses Gleichnis spricht, dieses eine Jahr, dann nimmt er das von Daniel 4.
Because he says, right,
Weil er sagt ja,
he answered and said unto them, Lord, let it alone this year also, till I shall dig about and dung it. And if it bear fruit, well, and if not, then after that thou shalt cut it down. So, in Ezekiel 37, right, how does the people look like?
in Hesekiel 37, wie sehen die Leute aus?
Completely destitute, right?
Hoffnungslos, ganz ohne irgendeinen Schimmer Hoffnung.
And the point is, right, if you just go to hopefully it's the last verse, go to Hosea chapter 10 and verse 12.
Gehen wir zu Hosea 10 und Vers Hosea 10, wie ist das? Hosea 10, Vers 12.
It says, sow to yourselves in righteousness, reap in mercy, break up your fallow ground, for it is time to seek the Lord till he come and rain righteousness upon us. Okay? So, and I mean, your fallow ground is ground that's been ploughed, but no seed has been put in it. Right?
Also dieser harte Boden oder dieser Brachboden, der wurde zwar gepflügt, aber der Same ist...
Fallow ground is ground that's been ploughed,
Ja, and the seed has not.
but there's no seed being sown in it.
Aber darin wurde noch kein Same gesät.
Okay, so no, I just made sure I understand that, but it's talking about ground that needs broken up, because when you plough ground, you have these big furrows, right?
Also ich muss das noch verstehen, aber you say this is already... I don't know
This
how
is
to...
ground that's been ploughed.
Ja,
It's got big furrows, these big, you know, when you plough the ground, it has these big long.
ja, also wenn Boden gepflügt wurde, dann hat er ja diese tiefen Furchen in sich.
It needs breaking up.
Und das muss noch aufgebrochen werden.
That's what it's saying. Break up your fallow ground.
Es sagt hier, brecht euren Brachboden auf.
Okay, so what is the new birth experience?
Was ist die Neugeburtserfahrung?
Error removed, your sin removed.
What are we talking? Read the verse.
New principles.
Versprechen.
Read the verse. What does it say? What's the ground?
Was ist der Boden?
Right, so what's going to be done with the heart?
Das Herz.
Broken up now.
Okay, so what's the new birth?
Also das muss aufgebrochen werden, gedemütigt werden. Was ist also die Neugeburt?
Right, a broken and contrite spirit, right?
Ein zerbrochener und zerschlagener Geist.
Okay, this is what Psalm 51 says. This is what you will accept,
Das
right?
sagt uns Psalm 51, das wirst du annehmen.
When you have a broken and contrite heart, what is Christ able to do?
Wenn du ein zerbrochenes und gedemütigtes Herz hast, was kann Christus dann tun?
He's able to put that new principle into your
Er
heart,
ist in
right?
der Lage, dieses neue Prinzip in dein Herz zu
Right? He
legen.
can't put it in there when it's all hard, right?
Er kann das nicht da reintun, wenn es ganz hart ist.
Okay, so as far as I would understand it, at least in Luke 13,
So wie ich das verstehen würde in Lukas 13,
that he's referring to this same point, right?
da bezieht er sich auf denselben Punkt.
Because he comes here, right, in Ezekiel 40, he comes to the temple and he's measuring it,
Er
right?
kommt ja hier in Hesekiel 40 zum Tempel und misst ihn.
It's this judgment, but at the same time he's pouring the former and the latter rain.
Das ist das Gericht, aber zur selben Zeit gießt er den Früh- und den Spätregen.
And the former rain is to convict you of your sin and cleanse you.
Der
Right?
Frühregen ist, dich von deiner Sünde zu überführen und dich zu reinigen.
So your heart can be broken, that you can be filled with the Spirit. Right?
Dass dein Herz gebrochen werden kann, dass er dich mit seinem Geist füllen kann.
Okay, so that's my thoughts on this at the moment. So you need to go through these, because I'm not saying that we understand this perfectly, but certainly there's enough information there to help us understand this better.
Also das sind meine Gedanken dazu und ihr müsst da durchgehen. Und ja, eben, wir verstehen noch nicht alle Punkte, aber es gibt genug Informationen, um die Sachen zu sehen.
Right?
Okay.
Okay, just remember that my thoughts are not your thoughts, God's thoughts are not our thoughts, and His ways are not our ways.
Und denkt einfach immer daran, dass Gottes Gedanken nicht unsere Gedanken sind und seine Wege nicht unsere Wege.
And, you know, the Bible is there. In order to understand the truth, we must have the experience that Daniel had.
Und damit wir die Wahrheit verstehen können, müssen wir die Erfahrung haben, wie Daniel sie gehabt hat.
And Daniel was fasting and praying, confessing his sins, breaking up this heart,
Und
right?
Daniel hat gefastet und gebetet und seine Sünden bekannt. Er hat dieses Herz aufgebrochen,
In order to understand the truth,
um
right?
die Wahrheit zu verstehen.
And don't think for 1 minute that you're going to get it served to you on a plate,
Und
right?
denkt für keinen Moment, dass es euch auf einer Platte serviert werden wird. Tablett.
Okay, because it says, Sister White says, you have to stretch every nerve and fiber in order to come to the correct conclusions,
Weil
right?
Ellen White sagt, wir müssen jeden Nerv und Strang ausüben, dass wir zu einem Verständnis der Wahrheit kommen.
So you can see that the Lord really wants to cleanse us of our own thoughts,
Also wir
right?
können sehen, wie der Herr uns wirklich reinigen will von unseren eigenen Gedanken.
Okay, so we need to pray.
Wir müssen beten.
Okay, let's close with prayer.
Dann lass uns mit Gebet abschließen.
Dear Heavenly Father,
Lieber himmlischer Vater,
I want to thank you also for these new thoughts and questions,
ich will dir auch danken für die neuen Gedanken und Fragen.
and I want to ask you to help us to have an open mind and heart,
Und ich möchte bitten, dass du uns hilfst, einen offenen Verstand und ein offenes Herz zu haben.
and of course also to come to you
Und auch, dass wir zu dir kommen
and ask for the answers.
und um die Antworten zu bitten.
Help us, Father, to have a pure message,
Hilf uns, Vater, dass wir eine reine Botschaft haben können.
because we need in order to be cleansed by our own errors.
Weil wir brauchen das wirklich, damit wir von unseren eigenen Irrtümern gereinigt werden können.
And also to give it to others.
Und damit wir es auch dann anderen weitergeben können.
And I want to ask you that you bless us today
Ich möchte dich bitten, dass du uns heute segnest
and help us to prepare our minds also for the Sabbath.
und dass du uns hilfst, unseren Verstand auch auf den Sabbat vorzubereiten.
That we would also receive all the truth, all the points that are going to be made.
Dass wir auch all die Wahrheiten und Punkte dann erhalten können, die gemacht werden.
And thank you once again that you want to really cleanse our minds from these Semiramis concepts.
Und danke noch einmal, dass du unseren Verstand wirklich von diesen Semiramis-Konzepten reinigen willst.
In Jesus' name.
In Jesu Namen. Amen.
Amen.